So we know what capacity is, what utilization is, what capacity cushion is. We know how to do some math and some problems. Now we're going to dive in to the relationship between capacity and utilization, capacity cushion and utilization. Okay, so thinking about there's always utilization is 1 minus capacity cushion. So what does that mean? That the part that you're using of your capacity, it's utilization, and what is not using is capacity cushion. So here in this slide, I want to talk to you about these decisions, right? So what do you think it's best for a company, to have a high capacity utilization or have a low capacity utilization? So if you think about, we did some math on the break-even analysis and talk about fixed cost and variable cost. And I know that you guys are smart and you realize that, well, if I use more of my capacity, it would be better for me, right? Because I'll sell more product. So, the more logic answer for that question will be, oh, high capacity utilization, because I'm paying for my capacity. I have 2 employees in my food truck business, right? I'm paying for them to be there. If I'm using more of their time, means that I'm selling more products, right? I don't want to pay them and they just stand there, stand still, don't do anything. I want them to do a lot of tackles and sell them. So if you think about it in a cost perspective, right? You want to have a high capacity utilizations, right? Because they're producing more, you're diluting your fixed cost, and you're able to reduce the cost of each product that you produce, right? That's the logic, right? But in some case, in some industries in particular, it will be good to have a low capacity utilization. So if you think about all kind of different businesses, right? Which one has a low capacity utilization? Which one most of the time they're not using their space or their people as much as they could? So if you go in particular to the service industry, you're going to find out that a lot of them have a low capacity utilization, right? So if I go now, I don't know what times you guys are watching this video, hopefully not at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you go to a Walmart store, you look at a parking lot and usually there's no one there, right? Or there's a lot of empty spaces. You're using half of it, right? Or and you go inside the store and say, well, a lot of spaces that no one is using, a lot of register that no one is there, right? So why all that capacity? If you go to, the church will be the extreme example, right? So the churches here always have like a huge parking lot, right? And they have a lot of spaces inside, but when are you using the church? Well, only on a Sunday or sometimes on a Saturday as well. But for a few hours, you have some people there, and then you don't have anyone there for most of the time. So, why does that make sense? Well, it makes sense in business where the variation is very high. Okay. And when you know that you're going to have a high demand for short period of time, and you want to be prepared for that. Okay, so let's take a look in a few different businesses. Okay, so I open Google Maps here very quick, and you can see that is saying that USC is temporary closed. That's because I'm recording this video before our classes start. And we can click into one of those businesses. I'm going to click here in Sonic Drive-In, and I'm going to take a look here below. It's their how many people are there, right? So you can see how their demand is over the day. By the way, don't go there now. It's very high near 1, 2 p.m. Then it goes low between 6, and then it goes high again to usually that's probably before COVID, in at 10, 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning, right? So in a demand like that, you have too much fluctuation. And if you have to have a high capacity utilization, my capacity will have to be around here, right? And if it was around here, most of the times I'll be using well my resources, but I would lose the demand on those peaks, right? So whenever the business have a high variation, and I want to make sure that I have a high margins as well, and I want to make sure that I'm selling more products. It makes more sense for me to stay open with very few people, but having enough capacity when I have the peak of demand. So never losing the peak of demand. Those business have a very high capacity cushion, and then you can think about all food industries are like that, right? Because the demand is always like that, like a Starbucks, a Chick-fil-A, any restaurant. The demand is like this. If you look at the restaurant most of the day, there's very few people there, but when you go in at lunchtime or dinner time, they're in a point of their capacity, right? They're very close to that. So that means that the average capacity cushion is high. Their average utilization is very low. Of course, that now we're in a COVID situation where everything is different. Uh, so here we have, some of the things that happen if I have high margins, imbalance, hotels, other services that cannot produce ahead of time. They're usually going to have a low utilization, average utilization, and a high capacity cushion.